Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and we have a full house today down here at the Nasir Harris Podcast Studio. But our featured guest of the day is our new Community Relations Coordinator, Curtis Voelker. Curtis, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you for having me again.
How many times is this now that you've been down here?
I don't know. I hope I'm going for the record. I think, is Adrienne the title holder?
So, yeah, and it's going to be tough to catch Adrienne because she's on every single month. So she more than likely is going to be the most prolific podcast guest. But you are certainly up there. I believe this is the third or fourth time we've had you down. So, it's always a wonderful conversation. So as I mentioned, Curtis is the new Community Relations Coordinator. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what that is. We're going to talk about the new Corporate Community Partnership Program. And we're also going to talk about his contributions to Alumni Council and the fact that you are also still our high school representative, a position that we've talked about in the past. So we're going to continue talking about that. Also being joined here today by Nightly News President Brian Christiana. Brian, welcome back to the podcast.
Always. It's always a great time.
So, Brian, real quick, the main reason I wanted you to be here today is because you actually have firsthand experience with Curtis coming into your high school and have often told me that really he's the reason that you're here. So I definitely want you to give some insight on that.
Okay, well, yes, my junior year of high school at Our Lady of Lourdes Regional, Curtis came in, my junior year. He came in, we were in the library, and he introduced himself, told him what all the school was about, and I was like, man, this place is really cool. I like the year-round term, and the price is very reasonable. And I kept in touch with my guidance counselor about it, and then my senior year was when that's when we met actually in the computer lab, and we did more hands-on stuff, and the best part about it was Curtis took my transcript with him after the visit, so I didn't have to ship it or anything, and I got a response about 3 weeks later, and yeah, I was in.
The rest, as they say, is history.
History, yep.
We are being joined, and for those of you who are dedicated Nightly News fans, you may have known that laugh right there. We are also being joined by one of our prestigious alumni, former Nightly News Vice President Yuliani Sadejo. Yuli, welcome back to campus.
Hi, everyone. It's always good to be back.
You know, Yuli, one of the things, I'm so glad this all worked out. So we are recording this just after our internship fair that we had here on the Central Penn College campus. Curtis participated, Brian participated, Yuli participated, and I myself also participated. So this just all worked out perfectly for us. And plus, I said Yuli was on campus. So Yuli, you did just recently graduate. I know you're out there looking hard for a job. How did the internship fair go today?
I think it went good. Talking to different people and then looking the different company that offer some couple jobs that are out there. Most of them are looking for next year for job opening, and then they also have a good internship for corporate communication department. The PSAR and then JDK is also doing a good job with internship, especially if you guys looking for social media out there. So definitely check them out. PSAR is looking for public relations. Working with graphic design, doing the magazine and stuff like that.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that we all had the opportunity to go down there today. It's something that I really think is a skill that a lot of students need to work with. But we can come back to that. But let's talk a little bit more about with Curtis about being the community relations coordinator. Can you, now that you've been settled into your position for a little while, and I will link to Brian's article that you did in the Nightly News on the blog for when you first were promoted, Curtis, but can you tell us let's start here. What is a community relations coordinator?
Sure. So for us, basically anything and everything related to partnering with the college, whether it's a high school, a business, a nonprofit, I will more than likely be one of the key people that organization or school, whoever it might be, will be connecting with. So that's the key word, is I'm a connector. I am meeting people in the community that need to talk to admissions, that need to talk to our foundation, that need to talk to career services. So I really keep it on mind. Who is this person? What do they need? How can the school help them? Who do I need to get them in front of? So to sum it up in one word, connector.
So whenever this first happened, so this was sort of a surprise. This wasn't even an advertised position, was it?
So this is kind of a culmination of things in my role as an admissions counselor I've been doing, and just plans as an alumnus that I've had for the school, and how do we get a larger community footprint. And it just came time that we needed a better fitting title for what I was actually doing out on the road in the high schools and with the communities, because I have done community presentations and business presentations even before I had this community relations title. So it wasn't necessarily a new position, just kind of a revamped look at what I've been doing so far.
It's very interesting. It's very similar to what happened with me being named the communication program coordinator. And a lot of people said, well, you got this new position. Now you have a lot more work. I said, well, not really, because this is what I was already doing anyway. It's just acknowledging that this is part of my position now, and as opposed to it sort of being loosely part of my position. So that it's something that's really cool, I think, about Central Penn is if they do recognize if you're going above and beyond in your position, then they try to take care of you in title and certainly in other ways as well. So, this comes from the heels of you still, and we'll come right back to the corporate community partnership program, but you're still doing one of the things that you're so passionate about. And one of those things that you are so passionate about is visiting our local high schools. So can you tell us what a typical day, if you're going out on the road and you're going to visit, one of the local high schools, what is a typical day in the life of Curtis when he's going to the high schools?
So a typical day is a full day of presentations at a local area high school or even a high school even further. I typically schedule with teachers in the classroom. A lot of people ask, do you connect with guidance counselors? Yes, in some ways, but to schedule the presentations, I mainly talk with the teachers because it is right in their classroom. And that's what I think is something that makes what we do Central Penn admissions-wise something very special and unique, is not a lot of other area colleges provide the educational experiences in the high school classrooms like we do. And I was excited to hear that that's why you brought Brian in, is to share his personal story. Brian and my relationship in terms of admissions counselor and student is a perfect example of what our goal was in terms of not just going to schools to recruit. Yes, that is a factor for any college, but it's our goal and our mission and our hope that we can provide a true educational experience, a lesson that whether a student likes Central Penn or not, or feels that we're a good fit or not, that at least if it's myself or someone else, at the end of the day, they leave that presentation saying, wow, I learned something, I have something I can use in my educational search. Central Penn, maybe they're not a good fit for me, or in Brian's case, yeah, this sounds awesome. Either way, we're here to provide a community service to our local area students.
So, Brian, if we go back to the day that you remember first meeting Curtis, do you remember what the presentation was about, or do you remember the circumstances surrounding this particular day? Can you remember?
Yeah, my senior year, I really remember how Curtis said he was asking us what our day would be like in college. He asked about, are we more of, going out in the community and doing stuff, or staying in our suite and doing homework and all that. And I remember the class was very separated and what type of city they want, where they wanted to live when they're older, more like a Harrisburg area, or more like a smaller area, maybe like Perry County or something. So I remember that a lot. And then he brought up Kamal. For another alum, Kamal. He was what was he ranked? I don't know. Top 5?
I think he was in the top 25 or whatever it is. He's definitely not someone to mess with on Madden.
Yeah, I remember that was everyone was their eyes raised when Curtis said that, and there was a lot. The sports programs, and then the 3-day weekends, and accelerated terms was the biggest part, I feel.
It's funny, we talk about this a lot, and Yuli, I remember talking about this in projects for corporate communications. We did a SWOT analysis,
Yes.
So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, which is something that's very commonly done in our local businesses. And when we were talking about the strengths of the college, that was one of the things, Yuli, that we brought up was the accelerated term schedule, to me, is probably one of the biggest, because you're, realistically, you can get out of here in 10 to 11 terms, and 3 years, if you're taking a full class load, you actually can get out into the job force a year earlier than a lot of your colleagues at other schools. We also, as Curtis is mentioning and will continue to talk about, is developing these partnerships. Part of what my role is in the communication department as the program coordinator, and part of the reason I like to go to these job fairs, is because that allows me a chance to network. It allows me a chance to get in front of these individuals. So, Yuli, do you remember back to that day when we did the project? What were some of the other big strengths that we talked about here?
I think also the clubs that were also participating and then helping each other out, and then some of the classes being smaller, and then you have the one-on-one with communication with your professors, which is not a lot of colleges do. If you go to Hack, you have 20 to 30 people in a classroom, and you don't really get to know your professors. And in here, as one of the strengths is you get to know your professors, you get to know your dean, everybody else, even in the admissions department, you get to know them.
Well, and that's very interesting that you bring that up, because to be honest with you, that is another one of the things. The smaller class sizes, more intimate opportunity to work with your faculty directly, or if nothing else, just not feel like you're bothering them to go ask them a question in their office hours. So, it was a very beneficial thing for us as a school to take a look at that, and I do think that that's very easy to communicate, because we are not like every other school. We do have some specific advantages, and we also, we have, I think it's like 12 or 13 bachelor's degrees that we offer here, and they're also almost every field that we are offering is in very, very high demand, and I think that that's very unique about us too.
Yeah, what I wanted to say about one of our partnerships, pretty cool, working at Wise and everything. Now we're partnered with them. That's a pretty big one.
And you were sitting in on a podcast that we recently recorded with Dr. Linda Fidrizi-Williams, and not only in fact, Curtis is the one that hooked the whole Wise thing up in the first place. And I'll tell you, Curtis, the last 3 or 4 events that we've done, we've had catered by Wise, and everything is perfect every time I go there. Jonathan, shout out to the store manager down there. Every time I go down there, he'll sit with me. I'll meet with him for 5-10 minutes, and every time I show up, everything is ready to rock and roll, and that's what I'm looking for. But that is also then parlayed into the food service on the weekends that's being supported by Wise Markets, so I think that's just one small example, Curtis, of some of these community partnerships that you're bringing to the table. Well, let's talk about that community partnership program. Curtis, anybody who follows you on social media, on Twitter at Curtis Voelker, can see what you're doing every single day, and it's almost every single day that I am seeing you with a big check for $1,000 from several different community organizations that you're partnering with. Tell us all about this.
So first I'll explain what this corporate community partnership is. So employees from organizations that provide some form of employee tuition reimbursement, if they choose to partner with the college, those employees would then be able to receive a $1,000 scholarship payable over their first 3 terms of study here with us at Central Penn. So that's pretty huge. To add or tack on another $1,000 that you don't have to pay in addition to whatever tuition reimbursement you get for your employer, that's a heck of a deal. So starting with the local area, right now we have a couple credit unions that have signed on board. You've seen those check photos as well. And the check just basically says $1,000 scholarship for employees of whatever organization it might be. So why credit unions? I just happen to personally have some connections in credit union world. But also, credit unions really fit a lot of the programs that we have. They need some business experience, accounting, finance, human resource, marketing, management, maybe even some IT with their systems that they have with the credit union at their headquarters, branch, whatever it might be. So there's a wide array of needs that we can really provide as a service to these local area credit unions. So we are starting to branch out with some more organizations. I have some partnerships and some meetings lined up with. So just to name a few, waiting on a meeting with Foot Locker, their main corporate office out of Camp Hill. I have a couple meetings scheduled with Chick-fil-A, individual franchises as well. So slowly but surely the program is starting to take off. And I really just think that it shows kind of that ability to go full circle. And you had mentioned it on a podcast before in the sense of not just myself, but to have someone in this type of role that you're working with high school students when they're coming into the college process. You're here at the events like the internship fairs while they're current students. And then when they graduate, helping out on alumni side, but then also when they go out into the workforce and they eventually leave this beautiful campus, eventually they'll have to leave sometime, right, Yuli? You know? But eventually they go out into that workforce, and it's still keeping in touch with them to help other people understand what are the opportunities here. So really everything just ties in together, and it's just providing that full service to our community.
I think that that's wonderful that you have that we have someone in this role, because what I find is interesting is, a lot of people, and I'm doing a lot of research for some of the one of the classes that I'm teaching, and I'm trying to find out a little bit more about what are the typical benefits that an employer can offer an employee, and what benefits are important to our millennial type students that are going on into the workforce seeking their first job. And one of those is tuition assistance, or either tuition reimbursement for their undergrad degree, or in some cases, and many of the businesses which I'm sure you're talking about, offering money to continue that education, whether it's to finish a bachelor's degree or to continue on with a master's degree as well. So I think that in this day and age is a very, very important aspect of a benefits package. work flexibility, paid time off, work-life balance. These are the benefits that our students that are going into their first entry-level positions, those are the benefits they're looking for.
Yeah, and the need for an education really never goes away.
Right.
The need for training, the need for professionals in their field is constantly developing and advancing and changing. So there's always going to be someone that needs that next step in their professional career, which is that bachelor's degree, which might be that master's degree. And we just simply are here to share that we are one of the many options out there. Here's why you might want to consider us.
Well, and two, Yuli, as somebody who's now currently searching for a job, I know it's kind of difficult because when you're kind of in your position and you're looking for that very first career position that you're going to get paid for and paid well for, hopefully, it's difficult to try to really look too much at the benefits package because, frankly, if somebody is coming to you and saying, Yuli, we'd like you to work for us, more than likely you're probably going to take it. You're probably going to jump at the opportunity to work for some of these companies. But I do think it is important, especially long term, because you've already shared with me, Yuli, that you would like, you're at least considering going to graduate school. Mm-hmm. So if, let's say you have two offers on the table and one's really offering tuition reimbursement, do you think that might sway you in that direction to work with that company if they are offering such a thing?
I would definitely, yeah. Is this a thing that I'm also looking for? I'm also looking for different programs that I can get my master, at least reduce the amount of money that I have to pay. And so while I'm also going to still be able to pay for my bachelor's degree.
Fantastic.
And
yeah,
I also want to have comment about Curtis' new title. I think that it's also going to help bring more students coming, especially if you're going to look at Chick-fil-A. There's so many teenagers that work over there during their high school time. And if they're going to be able to work there and then they get reimbursement from their work to go to school, I think you get more younger people also coming in, not only the adult, because our school also have the adult students that come in to get their masters or also some bachelors that are actually here. And I think that being able to reach out to the companies and then also to the businesses that also target younger people, teenagers people, you will also get so many people in our school. And bachelors, we have so many different programs that they can enroll to, PTA, OTA, and I know that so many students out there are working really hard. Like some of them work in McDonald's. Maybe you can go over there, or maybe you can go to Sheets also too. Because I think like if you go toward that direction, I'm sure that, because right now I know that the current problem is we're not really having so much people, like students that live on campus, that by being able to go directly that way and also bring the adult learner to our campus, I think our campus will be awesome in the next couple of 3 years.
And Yuli really hit the nail on the head in terms of these partnership conversations, is that they're having some conversations where an organization may not necessarily offer tuition reimbursement, but there are still ways we can partner. Two examples with that. Kristen Fike and myself, Kristen Fike from Career Services, she's also a proud Central Penn graduate. Yes. We are partnering with JBT, Jonestown Bank. They don't offer tuition reimbursement, but it got kind of the wheels spinning, and now we're building their first ever, from what I've been told from them, their first ever internship program, and they're building it exclusively with Central Penn College. So that's going to open up a lot of new doors. I actually thought of Brian for one of their positions opening up, but we'll talk about that off the microphone here. But it's just interesting that there are many ways to help people achieve their goals. So whether you have reimbursement or not, there's still conversations to be had. The second example real quick is back home from Littlestown. My high school job, pretty much like every other Littlestown graduate, was Kenny's Market, local area grocery store. They have grown in leaps and bounds. They now have 5 stores, 4 stores within our local area that fit within our regional scholarship footprint, and then another store in Tawnytown, Maryland. And I chatted with the new CEO. They don't provide reimbursement, but just as you mentioned, Julie, there are high school students working there.
Yes.
And I actually partnered with them starting in August. And throughout the month of August, I'll be doing about 2 or 3 leadership and training kind of seminars for their staff from across 5 of their stores. Yes. So that gets me in front of high school students, even though it's the summer, because typically we think, oh, you can't talk to high school students because they're not in the classrooms. Well, let's go to their jobs. Let's let them know we are still here. We still have options. And not only the high school students, but then the adults, the parents who might be looking for their options as well. So Yuli, you hit the nail on the head there.
Are you doing your training on passion? Pass it on? No?
They didn't sign up for that one, no. I'm doing kind of a mixture on communication, teamwork, and perceptions.
I'm sure
so
it'll be good.
You have a wide array of different age groups and different backgrounds working with Kenny's, so it's going to be nice to help them kind of learn how to work together and mix and mingle a little bit more.
Well, one thing I wanted to chat about, and then I do want to close out with the job fair today and some impressions that we took away from that. You are on the Alumni Council, and you are the Young Alumni Chair. So can you talk to the audience a little bit more about what that entails as far as being on the Alumni Council and what the Young Alumni Committee has to do with the bigger picture?
Sure. So the Alumni Council overall, made up of graduates who are looking to make a bigger impact on this alma mater that they left here either recently or a couple years ago, whatever it might be. And we are really the body that's responsible for programming, engagement, involvement, interaction for alumni through all years and decades of graduation. And specifically young alumni, we're looking at graduates within their first 10 years of graduation. So it does not matter your age, and we talked about that with Sherry Long. It doesn't matter when you graduated or what your age, within that first 10 years, you're still considered a young alum. And our committee is really responsible for connecting with that specific target or that specific group, but we definitely do events for alumni of all ages, and one of those is Alumni on Tap, and that has grown to one of our most successful types of events. This August, and I know that the podcast will be out by the time it happens, but we're holding it at Gilligan's on the Carlisle Pike in Mechanicsburg, which also, these alumni events give us opportunities to connect with different businesses and organizations for our alumni and for our students. So it's just a very rewarding opportunity to give back to our school. You might be involved in Alumni Council to help with homecoming or the foundation fundraiser or whatever it might be. There's tons of different options, and we are always looking for volunteers, ideas. Please let us know. We are happy to hear your voice.
And I'm so very fortunate to be a part of this as well, and I'm honored that I was asked to do this. So next time we have you on, we'll have a full report on the Alumni on Tap. So one more thing that we wanted to chat about before we move on to the job fair is, again, we talked earlier about how you're still going into the high schools and how that's so important to you. You also are offering a regional scholarship as well. So can you just chat a little bit, certainly if people are out there are prospective students, what this regional scholarship has, what is involved and how they can apply?
Yeah, this is huge. Our regional scholarship for 2017 and 2018 high school graduates with a GPA of 2.5 or above, if you are from the counties of Cumberland, Dauphin, Lancaster, Lebanon, Perry, York, or Adams County, you are actually eligible for a $3,000 scholarship to start out through your first 3 terms. Now, let's expand upon that. You could also be eligible for our summer start grant if you start in July, where you could tack on another $2,000. Also, depending on any other grants, scholarships, financial aid that you receive, if you receive a housing scholarship here on campus, the sky's the limit, honestly, with how we are able to provide stackable scholarships for our students. You could be starting out your freshman year with a pretty decent setup in terms of scholarship and financial aid. So it really is quite simple. You just need to take the time to complete a 1-page essay. I mean, and that's the case for a lot of scholarships and essays and grants and things like that. I encourage any high school student that might be listening to this podcast, whether it's Central Penn or not, talk to your guidance office, because each year they have tons of scholarships and grants that go unclaimed because students might not be aware, or students are a little bit discouraged or scared about writing that essay. Take that leap of faith and write that essay. 1 page could save you $1,000, $3,000. And it may not seem like much now, but once you graduate, you'll be understanding the importance of that.
That was one of the things I talk a lot about financial aid literacy in my CPC Foundations class. It's not necessarily one of the things we have to talk about, but it was always one of the things that I knew the least about as far as college went. And honestly, to my unfortunately detriment, I never really applied for a whole lot of scholarships. And looking back, it was the biggest mistake I made. Just alone, we're sitting in this room with 2 people who have received a considerable amount of money from the Education Foundation.
Yeah, the golf tournament last year, that was fun.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Yuli and I can both say we are great golfers. We are great.
Oh, my God.
But that's my point. I think a lot of times students don't understand all the different avenues out there. And again, Curtis, Central Penn offers, twice a year for current students the opportunity to apply for the Education Foundation Scholarship. We did, the summer one just did pass. The deadline was August 3rd. But please mark your calendars, current students, for January, and make sure the winner you turn in your application. But even more so, if it's not necessarily through the Education Foundation, there are thousands of scholarships in all fields. One Brian and I just talked about was a Harry Callis award, and I would have never known about that unless they had reached out to me. So there are so many different places, whether it's within your field, whether it's just doing some quick, Google searching, or whether there's resources in the library. I really think if students took a little bit of time and dedicated to scholarships, often a lot of these scholarships do go unclaimed because frankly people don't know about them.
Sure.
So please make sure that you're taking advantage of the Education Foundation Scholarship Essay that takes place every summer and winter on campus.
I also think that students should also take advantage of the new one, especially the prospective students that coming from high school. When I came here, they don't have the regional scholarship. I only did the summer, which is $2,000,
Sure.
and then you got. So I think that students should take advantage of that, and then not only that, I'm sure they got way down for like their tuitions and stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, after you're done with college, you still have to pay your debt.
Right.
Yes, you
Which
do.
is the truth. And some people still paying for it now, and some people still just starting paying for it. And it's like, if you can take advantage of any scholarship that are available for you, it's really great. You will be way much better when you're done with college.
So-
Speaking of the truth, like the reality is true.
Absolutely, Yuli. Very, very well said. So one final thing that I want to chat with you about is, okay, so we did all come from the internship fair today. And Curtis, you had a seat at that internship fair. So can you just chat a little bit more about why you were in that seat and what you're trying to do at the internship fair today?
So from an admissions aspect, we are there sharing the opportunities for our master's program. So I graduated last year with my master's of professional studies in organizational leadership. And a lot of times people that are out there in the workforce looking for that next career, that next position, a lot of times that degree is the only thing in their way from getting that position. So we're here to let our students know whether you are a current bachelor's student and you're graduating soon, you could seamlessly transfer into the master's program, or if you are a graduate and you haven't been back to campus for a couple of years, you can still apply. This could be the key to your success in that next field or that next career. So we're there sharing about the master's programs, and just as a former student, a graduate, and as a staff member as well, it was very interesting this year with this particular event. We had so many first-term freshmen dressing up, shirt and tie. They have their dress and their heels on. And they're ready to go. They are jumping at this opportunity, and that was really refreshing to see that they've only been here a couple weeks, and they are ready to go. They're ready to mix and mingle and network and make sure they get their name out there as a potential Central Penn graduate.
Well, I think that speaks to the accelerated schedule because, even if somebody is only coming in as an associate, yeah, they're going to be done in a year and a half. And so to make these connections now, that's one of the points I make in my CPC Foundations class. I said, look, I know you just got here. You're going to be looking for a job in a year and a half, so you need to take advantage of every opportunity you can to meet the people who might hire you. Now, that being said, between Yuli and Brian, who are also both there at the internship fair today, I'd like to get a little bit of a perspective on how you approach the job fair. So, Yuli, obviously, you're a graduate. What was your intention today when you were down at the internship fair?
I know that it's only for internship today, but I also look.
That's not true.
Oh, okay. Because the title is internship fair, but I came there to the intention of getting to know the company and then what they're doing, and then also trying to look for opportunities. Even if they don't have it now, I can still ask their contact number and info, and then maybe connect on LinkedIn, and then reach out to them later on down the road. Because as I said earlier, they were looking for some couple stuff on January, which is in the coming year, within couple months.
And Brian, how did you use the internship fair? I mean, you're not even quite ready for internship yet, but what was your intentions?
No, I mean I have about a year until I can start looking at internships. Yeah, I was very impressed with how everything went. I enjoyed talking to Hershey. There was a lot of, I really was at Lapeer, out of Lancaster. They were very
Lapeer.
good.
Yeah.
The representative was very nice, and I was really impressed with what Steve and Kristen really did. Rabina and all of them, they did a really good job on getting this all together.
And I think that compared to the other job internship fair, they have more for communication this year.
Yeah, I noticed
Especially
that
in
too.
internship, a lot of them.
I would
right
say
now.
between communication and marketing, 80% of the companies there were looking for
Yeah.
marketing
Yeah, but
and
like now
communication.
there's more specific toward like graphic design and social media. JDK wasn't there when I was here. I didn't even know about them. And then when I heard the name, because I've been looking for their job too.
I thought it was
this
really
is like
cool.
the first time, I think, but it's really cool this time.
Do you all know who Professor Deborah Donahue is too, correct?
Yeah.
She works for a nonprofit, and she was looking for communication students, and I thought that was really cool how a professor was working, like, you know, she's working at her work, but for she was with another company, and She was really looking for students for today. Yeah, she was really looking for students. And yeah, her company is very well represented. And yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts about the internship fair today. But really the big thanks today goes out to Curtis Voelker, the new Community Relations Coordinator here at Central Penn College. Really not a change in role, just more of a clarification of the things that you'd already been doing. Everybody, don't forget about the Corporate Community Partnership Program. If you have a business that's interested in joining with Curtis, I will have his email along with the podcast. It's Curtis Voelker at centralpenn.edu. If you're in high school, keep in mind that the regional scholarship is still very available. Curtis can always give you more information about that. And any alumni, you can be a part of Alumni Council by either coming out to Alumni on Tap with events in April and August, or by reaching out to Curtis and see how you can join the Alumni Council.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me. It is always such a pleasure to be here.
Well, Curtis, it is most certainly our pleasure. And as a heartfelt congratulations. You are someone who, even when I got here as a student, you stood out, and you've been nothing but kind with your time with me, and anything that you can do to help me and what we're doing with the Nightly News or what we're doing in the communication department. I'm always happy that you're able to, introduce me to people in the community that helps. If you're helping me, I can help you in return, but you're really just helping the college as a in general way to look at it. So I just appreciate all of your hard work and all of your efforts and your positive attitude. Every single day I see you, always got a smile on your face, and trust me, sometimes that's tricky to find. So I really, really appreciate it.
Got to take care of the Central Penn family.
But
awesome.
You're so glorious.
You're the best.
Well, I appreciate everybody tuning in today. Curtis, again, thank you so much for joining us. All right, well, that's it for this segment of the Nightly News Podcast. Yuli, thank you for coming back.
Thank you.
We appreciate you coming to the internship fair today and coming down to the podcast studio. And so for Yuliani Sadejo, former vice president of the Nightly News Media Club and SGA president, I don't want to leave that out. SGA is doing some big things. You should listen to our most recent podcast.
Definitely. I heard a lot of stuff there.
And for Community Relations Coordinator, Curtis Voelker. Curtis, again, thank you. And, of course, for Nightly News President Brian Christiana. Brian, thank you for sharing your stories.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Curtis.
You're very welcome. All right, so for everybody, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll catch you next time on the Nightly News Podcast.
This is Tom Davis, Chair of English and Communication at Central Penn College. Thank you for listening to the Nightly News Podcast.
Welcome to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and I'm sitting in today with a wide variety of people who we will introduce here in just a minute. And we're going to be talking about men's soccer that's coming up here in our late summer / into our fall terms. Right now, we are sitting here with the coach and professor, Doug Fisher. Doug, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Professor.
You're very welcome. We're also sitting with Zach Morrill. Zach, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And, of course, Nightly News Secretary Dylan Kleintop. Dylan, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So let's just start off here, guys. Dylan, I know that you've been on the show before. Gentlemen, is this the first time you've ever been on a podcast before? No,
Yeah.
You've been on some before, Doug?
Many.
Well, many. Okay. Can you tell us about some of your history with podcasts?
Sure. There's a consulting firm up in Toronto that's used me as a guest and occasionally a host on their podcast for years, but it's business-oriented, not sports or educational.
Well, you still have got some experience in doing some podcasting. That's
Certainly.
awesome. Zach, have you ever been on a podcast before?
This is my first time.
Well, there's a first time for everything. So we're coming to you here from the Boyer House, the Nasir Harris Podcast Studio at the Boyer House here at Central Penn College, and we are going to be talking men's soccer. So the first thing is we are here today for several reasons. We obviously want to preview the season that is coming up for the Central Penn Knights men's soccer team, but we also want to put out a plea for some more players. At this point, the soccer team is looking for some more players, practice did start August 7th, but that doesn't mean that new players can't be added as needed. Doug, can you tell us a little bit more about what the practices are like and maybe what the expectations are for players in case anyone's trying to determine whether they want to be a player?
I'd be happy to. Thank you. We practice right now in preseason Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings from 6 to 7:30. There are optional practices that are player-driven on Mondays and Fridays, but they are not required. But we do have mandatory practice 3 nights a week, Tuesday through Thursday, 6 to 7:30. Practice is a stereotypical soccer practice for the most part. We do a lot of drills at the beginning. First, we get really warm and get stretched out. Do a lot of drills to build skills and to support the concepts. It's really, to be honest, it's not that much different than teaching. We have 6 primary learning objectives, and of those learning objectives, we do drills to support the skills that would accomplish those 6 objectives. And then beyond that, we'll then go into what we call possession, and we have many, many, many different flavors of possession, which essentially to an average kid growing up, it would be keep away, where you're playing keep away with a soccer ball on the ground. And we work real hard at that for quite a while. And then a lot of times, if we have a real good practice at the end, we'll do some shooting because that's the reward.
Of course. So tell us a little bit. We know you as a business professor here at Central Penn. Tell us a little bit about your history with soccer and how you became a soccer coach.
Well, it was because of my sons, like most coaches in the United States. Here we coach our kids. So I started coaching when my oldest son, who is now 33, was 6 or 7. And that was in Europe years ago. So I've coached about 21 years, counting this season here last year. And I coached in the United States and in Europe, all high-level premier soccer. Traveled the world. I've taken teams to Italy, France, Switzerland, all over the United States, Florida, San Diego, everywhere we could go to find the very best competition in the country.
So Central Penn Men's College, Central Penn College men's soccer team is being coached by somebody with international experience, decades of coaching experience. They're so lucky, Doug.
Thank you. I guess it's just what happened in my life, really. It's not premeditated.
That's fantastic. I'm a baseball coach myself, and I played a lot of my life, and I'm very happy to be able to share the game that I love with younger people. So, all right, next up, Zach Morrill. He is one of the star soccer players on the team. Zach, can you just share us a little bit about your soccer journey and how you became to Central Penn College to play soccer?
So basically, I started playing when I was about 4 or 5, just rec leagues, and then started with club, which is a higher level locally. And basically through high school, I played varsity, junior varsity, and then basically I wanted to play in college, so I wanted to stay home, and Central Penn was a good choice for me.
That's fantastic. And so would you say that you're one of the all-stars of the team?
I mean, I'm not going to say that myself, but I mean, people like to consider it that way.
That's good.
He is. Professor Miller, he is definitely a star. Last year at the end of the season, I traveled to the National Championship Tournament and attended the banquet where all the All-American honors were handed out. And I can tell you, quite frankly, that Zach had numbers superior to at least 75% of the first-team All-Americans in the nation.
Wow.
He had extraordinary numbers.
All right, so Zach said he's not an all-star, but let me just tell you a quick story about Zach. Last season of the game, it was one of our players got fouled at an impossible angle to take a shot from, and I know he remembers this because he constantly brings it up in practice. And I was like, yo, let me take it because there's no reason to shoot from here. Like, I can cross it in the box for a better opportunity. And he goes, no, let me take it. And I said, all right, you're the star player. I'm just going to back up and let you do what you do. And what does he do? He scores from an impossible angle. So that just explains the type of player he is. Takes chances when no one else would.
That's incredible. Well, Zach, we're glad to have you on the team, and certainly the team's looking forward to another All-Star season from their star player. If you won't say it, I will, because everyone else did too, so I'm going to agree with them.
Thank you.
Brings us to Secretary of the Nightly News, Dylan Kleintop, but in addition to all the writing and other podcasts that he's been on, he is now consuming his time with being on the soccer team. So, Dylan, how did you become a Central Penn College Knights men's soccer player?
Well, like Zach, I started playing when I was about 4 or 5. I played rec leagues, and then I played travel ball with a team called Carbon United. And then I played premier soccer for a team called Keystone Athletic. And then I played 3v3, and we traveled all over the country, Florida, Buffalo, gone out to like Ohio, stuff like that. And then played in high school like every other soccer player that plays in college, they have to play in high school. Won back-to-back titles my junior and senior year. 4-time varsity letter winner. And then I wasn't really sure if I wanted to play in college or not with managing school and everything else. But the second weekend, the coach at the time, he called me and he asked me to play. And I couldn't turn down an offer being asked to play. So I was like, yeah, might as well give it a try. So nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Very true. One thing that I did want to bring up with you guys, it has a lot to do with some of the discussions that I've had with business leaders in the community, and I'm sure Doug can echo these sentiments that I'm about to share with you. You know, Dylan, you made a very interesting point right there, saying that, you know, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to play at the college level because I wasn't really sure where I was going to be as far as with time, whether you're working, whether you're, you know, taking a full load of credits. One of the best things about playing soccer or baseball or basketball or any collegiate sport at this level is the fact that this is something that you can put on a resume. And a lot of students say to me that they don't understand, you know, how that necessarily applies on the resume. Well, I will never forget some conversations I've had with some local individuals at businesses, and they have told me directly that when they're looking for students entry level, so right out of college, one of the biggest boons on their resume is that they played college sports. Now, just asking the gentleman first on the team, why do you think that local businesses, when they're looking at a resume, why do you think that they want those that have played college sports?
Well, if you play college sports and can keep your grades up, that just shows that you have good time management skills and that you're responsible with handling different situations. Also, if you are like the captain of a team, it shows that you can be a leader when needed, when asked upon.
Yeah, basically what Dylan said, it just makes you a really good person. You can act in different situations. You can just pretty much grow as a person a lot more than just not playing a sport in college.
Well, okay, so we talked right there, we talked leadership and you talked time management skills. Two of very, very important, leadership especially. You know, I talk to a lot of students, and I'm sure Dylan gets sick of hearing me say this in class, about the importance of getting involved in something. I don't care if it's baseball or soccer or the nightly news or the Central Penn players or any number of our wonderful clubs or sports teams or organizations here on campus, because it's showing the individuals that you're going to be applying with that you are going above and beyond the call of duty. Nobody is asking you, no one's forcing you to play a sport. And in fact, you're probably making things a little harder on yourself. So that idea of having those leadership skills is one of the main things that local businesses are looking for in their entry-level applicants. So I'm going to go to Doug because I think that you guys missed one very, very important component of why it's important to join a group, an organization like that, and it has something to do with something that you guys have been doing since you were 5 years old. Doug, do you know what I'm alluding to?
Well, I'm not sure I do, actually, because I had a different thought on my mind in terms of this subject.
I'll come right back to it.
Okay, that would be cool. So what I was going to say is that I'm an adjunct business professor here, and I think one of the reasons I'm called that is because I didn't spend my life educating students. I spent my life running companies. I'm a lifelong company president. So I've hired thousands of people over the years, and what a college education told me first and foremost is that they can stick to it and they can grind and they can get things done year in and year out. And if you can do that while committed to a sport or even an activity such as the nightly news or this club, then I know that's a pretty special kid. That's a young person that not only will do the job, but will grind and will get it done and will find the time for their studies and manage their time so they can get through everything. I want finishers, not just people that start a job. I want people to stay with it. And that's the very first indicator I get from a college education. And then I start assessing brightness and other attributes of it.
Well, and really what I was alluding to previously is the concept of teamwork. When you're on a team such as a soccer team, you can have the best player in the world, and Zach might be that, honestly. I'm just giving you a hard time, Zach. Yeah. You can have a wonderful player, but if you don't have surrounding components of that player, I'm just going to give you, I'm a huge baseball fan. Number one player in MLB right now, Mike Trout. Of course, people could argue with you about that. But Mike Trout, and look at his team's not even 500. So you have the best player in the game, but if you don't have the surrounding components, it's very difficult to succeed. So our team is worth more than this individual in almost every single sport. Basketball, maybe not so much, but certainly in soccer. And one of the things that I compare this to is I often, and Professor Fisher, you could talk to me about this, what you do in the classroom. I often employ group projects. Is group projects something that you do frequently?
Not frequently because I teach online, but
I've done group projects online.
There are classes, well, I have too, and there are classes where it really works, and there are classes where it's not optimal, but we do group work, yes. And it matters.
When you are in the classroom and you say or announce a project that is a group project, what is typically the first reaction?
From a number of students, exasperation.
It's that. This is what I get. I even said it today in class, Dylan. I said, hey, our final project, we're looking forward. It's going to be a group project. And I heard this collective, and it's. There's a reason we do this. We don't just do it because we want to, make your lives miserable. We do it because you have to understand that working as a team I don't care where you go. I don't care what field you're in. I don't care what industry you're in. Working as a team is of utmost importance. So even though I'm relatively on my own, I run my own classes, I grade my own, papers and assignments and things like that, I'm on 20 teams, okay? I'm on different committees. I'm on part of the nightly news. I am part of, the years of service banquet. I'm on so many different teams that even though my job's relatively independent, I still have to work as a team constantly. And that is one of the other aspects of playing college sports, is that element of teamwork. So I hope that you guys kind of think about that. All right, well, we're going to move on to last season. We're going to take a look back at last season. And so, Coach Fisher, I would love for you guys to just give me a little bit of idea about how last season was. Tell us about some of the ups and downs and sort of, wrap last season up so we can get our listeners caught up if they were unaware.
Happy to. Last season was really a consistent series of successes. It was quite challenging in that, like most years, we struggle for numbers, but we had a great group of young men that really went out there and worked hard and trained hard. And this program had never had a winning season. As a matter of fact, this program had never won more than 4 games in an entire season. And these guys not only went out and beat every team they really should beat, but they had their first ever winning season. So I would say as a team, you could sum up last year and say we learned how to win. And that's essential because I don't like to lose. So
he does.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm sure with every win, you could see the confidence increasing. You knew it was there, but you just got to win those first couple games, and you see the confidence going through the roof.
And there was a moment. There was one moment during the season when everything changed in terms of our confidence, and that was at Williamson Trade in Philadelphia, a night game under the lights on the single worst pitch I've ever seen a player play on. And it went to, we had a lead. We had, I think, a 2-1 lead late in the game. And might have been 1-0. But we had a lead late in the game. They scored in the last, well, to be honest, they scored after the game was over. But the referee didn't see it that way. He gave them the goal. That put us into sudden death overtime. And at the time, freshman Taylor Martin scored an unbelievable goal, left-footed from the right flank, and it was sudden death winner, and the game ended, and our entire team was in a pile celebrating, and I've never seen happier young people in my life. We said on the ride home, we thought we maybe could have driven to Texas and not blinked. Everybody was wide awake for that late night ride home from Philadelphia, and that really was a turning point, I think, for the program and for this group of men that went out there and worked so hard, and we had never ever come close to beating Williamson Trade. So that was a landmark victory, and it really did change, I think, the perspective of the whole program.
And would you say after that game that everybody kind of paid attention more, or was more engaged, or really looked forward to the games because of that moment?
I do. I think everybody just took it a little more serious. We had some kids that had left the program in previous years come back after hearing about the early successes we were having. But when we won that game, we didn't just realize that we could beat the teams we should play. We realized we now are capable of beating teams maybe we shouldn't beat. Maybe we're a little better than we think, and we're capable of beating a better opponent. And it was, like I said, it was a turning point for us.
Zach, tell us about that moment in your mind.
Basically, it was probably one of the greatest moments I've ever had on the soccer field. It was like all that hard work finally paid off. Like finally, like beating that team. Previous years we had no business even competing with that team, and we beat them. And when we went into overtime, I just remember like, all right, do it again, just score again, and we scored. And it took 2 minutes after in overtime to score, and it was just crazy.
Dylan, what do you remember?
Well, I remember when they scored after the buzzer sounded and there was just a bunch of confusion on the field. I mean, I just went to the bench and tried to get a quick rest because I knew it wasn't in our favor that time. I just knew we were going to go to overtime. Stepping on the field for overtime, I've played in overtime games before, but none with that energy in it. And it was just, adrenaline was just pumping. And I'm glad it only lasted 2 or 3 minutes because I was exhausted. But when he scored, like, I don't think I've ever ran so fast in my life.
Well, Professor Miller, you talked a little bit earlier about resumes and building a career out of your college experience and how athletics might play into that. Let's just talk about that a little bit more. Imagine for a minute what every player on our team felt after they had really worked hard. Now, understand, this is soccer. This is not a sport where you stand around. They had run for 90 minutes. That's a half marathon in most people's running shoes. So they had just run a half marathon, and after it was over, they lost their lead, which could have crippled their attitude. But what they did was they developed character. They walked to the sideline. They didn't complain. We decided as a team we're not going to let it upset us. We can't let a referee decide whether we have a good day or not, or whether we win a match or not. So I think a lot of young men learned a lot about character that day, and they showed a tremendous amount of character when they didn't get upset about what could have been perceived as a very bad call. And the athletic director of the other squad actually apologized for the call. Didn't matter. We still had to deal with it. It was still our reality, and not every day in our professional world is perfect. But we have to learn to have character and deal with that and still provide excellence in everything we do. And every single young man on that team did that day. So there's another resume builder for you.
Without a doubt. And I'll tell you, you get thrown curveball questions when you're sitting in the interview process. So, if a future job interviewer ever asks you, tell me a time when, look back to and reflect on some of the times that you've spent playing sports, and that's might be something that you guys probably will be something that you guys remember for the rest of your lives, and that's something you can certainly use in an interview situation. All right, which brings us to our final segment here that we're going to talk about. I do want to talk about some upcoming dates that are going to be important for everybody. Number one, if you are interested in joining either the men's soccer team, you can always email Douglas Fisher. The email will be accompanying with the article that comes along with this podcast. Douglas Fisher at centralpenn.edu, and he can get you all the information that you need. Practice did start August 7th, and as Coach Fisher said, it's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 6:30 to 8?
6:30 to 8. I'm sorry, 6 till 7:30
6 to
for
7:30.
3 weeks, and then we start our season. It'll be less than that.
Okay. So the preseason practices are quite important, but if you are interested, you can email Doug at your earliest convenience. 2 key dates. The season does start on August 27th on the road at Penn State Lehigh, and will continue on September 1st, which is their first home game, the Knights' first home game at here at Central Penn College. We do play at Adams Rickey Park at Penn State Mont Alto. Stay tuned to the Nightly News. We're going to continue to talk about different events that are coming up, and one of the very interesting things that we'd like to share with everybody is we are in the process of figuring out the logistics to do live stream for these soccer matches. So, I'm going to go to the players for a minute here. This is something that we've been working on for quite some time. We did stream 6 live Knights men's baseball games, and we are hoping that logistically it works out well to do some of the men's and women's soccer games. What would that mean to you, Dylan, to be able to have those live stream, and keeping in mind that we're going to keep it on YouTube, so as long as YouTube exists, you can always tune back and watch those games?
Yeah, well, it's important to me because I have my parents live about an hour and a half away from here. So for them to get off work and to drive to my games, it's tough for them. So
And I'm sure they hate that because I bet they watched every one of your games when you were
Yep,
younger.
Yep. So it would be a lot easier for them if the games were on like YouTube or Facebook to live stream to watch me play. Also, it could actually benefit the team because we could use it as film for the next game to see what we can improve on. Personally, I've never had a good coach like make me watch film, but like I wish a coach did to see where I could always improve on. And just in the future, like looking back, like if we have a big win, could always replay it over and over again just to soak it all in and have fun with it, I guess. I don't know.
Zach, what do you think about the potential of us doing some live stream for the soccer team?
I think it's extremely beneficial because we can, like Dylan said, we can watch the film, we can review that, and in high school, that's what we did. We watched the film, and it made us a lot better, and it helped us prepare for the next game. And also, it's just way better for like my family. Like my mom's local, but my dad lives in Delaware, so it's hard for him to try to drive the whole way up here every game, but he does it, and it's just it'd be a lot easier for him to.
As I look back, after the baseball season, we had Christian Fulp and Quentin Heckard on, and Christian Fulp said something to me. He just became a father, and he said to me that he understands that he's probably not going to be the next New York Yankee or Baltimore Oriole, and he understands that these times in college, might be some of the last time that he gets to play baseball on a major level. And he said that one of the things that he appreciated most about this was the fact that, a couple years from now, he can put YouTube on and show his daughter that, he was a ball player. And I thought that was pretty interesting and profound to me that that's something that you can share with your children who aren't even thought of yet. But down the line, that's something that you can share with them. So we definitely are going to do everything that we can to make sure that we're streaming some of the games this year. And we really look forward to supporting the Central Penn Knights men's soccer team. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for spending some time with the Nightly News here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
My pleasure, Professor.
Well, and we would like to have you back. I don't know if during the season is going to be possible because I know you guys are going to be traveling and you're going to be practicing, but we'd definitely like to invite you back after the season, and all three of you come on back and we will chat a little bit more about the season that was. But in the meantime, please, if you're interested in playing soccer for the men, please reach out. Douglas Fisher at centralpenn.edu. Practice did start August 7th, but you are still able to sign up for the team. First game is August 27th. That'll be on the road at Penn State Lehigh. And the second game will be here at Adams Rickey Park, September 1st against Penn State Mont Alto. So please, if you have any desire to play men's soccer this year, you're needed. So, all right, well, gentlemen, thank you all so very much for joining me. So for All-Star Zach Morrill, Nightly News Secretary Dylan Kleintop, and Professor and Coach Doug Fisher, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll catch you next time on the Nightly News Podcast.